수도 있습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 해치랩스라고 하는 블록체인 기술 솔루션이랑 스마트 컨트랙트 보안 감사 진행하는 곳에서 사업개발 디렉터 맡고 있는 오세진이고요. 동시에 디사이퍼라고 하는 서울대학교 블록체인 학회 회장을 맡고 있습니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 게임엑스 코인의 엄지용이라고 하고요. 저희 회사 같은 경우는 이오스 베이스로 해서 자체 메인앱 만드는 회사고 이제 게임이랑 연결하는 그런 프로젝트를 진행하고 있어요. 근데 저는 단지 저 회사 일뿐만 아니라 이제 오픈소스에 관심이 많아갖고 알고랜드 프로젝트는 예전부터 처음 논문 나왔을 때 관심이 있었는데 아마 국문으로 검색해보면 알고랜드 관련 글을 넣었을 텐데 미디어 매체 글을 좀 보시면 도움이 되실 것 같습니다. 지금 디사이퍼 멤버로 활동하고 있습니다.
Please, can I get you? Yeah, we are gonna start. They're gonna ask questions.
Okay, I have a question. According to Algprand paper, scaling Byzantine arguments for cryptocurrency on page 4, it assumed that 95% are honest participants. So I assume that if a network is running with 10% of honest node without any punishment, the network might be controlled by the numerous malicious nodes when the rest is offline. So what would be Algprand punishment mechanism to prevent this kind of situation?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading our paper so carefully. Yes, this is about honesty ratio and online-offline users. As I said, we do not punish users for misbehaving. So the paper said 95%. Actually, in the system, we are using 80%. So we assume at most 20% of the stake in the system can be malicious. That's already a pretty large fraction. In the worst case, the Byzantine agreement itself can tolerate 1/3 of the tokens to be malicious. Now, in terms of user being online and offline, that is related to our bootstrapping strategy. We plan to make Algprand a decentralized platform via a period of time, so that during this period, we grow the value of the network while making the token base to be more distributed. The good thing is that at the beginning, the tokens probably will be more concentrated for the security of the network. And gradually, the network's value will grow, assets will be built, and the token base will grow, so that it becomes harder and harder to control a large fraction of tokens in the system. So this is a balance between bootstrapping and decentralization, that we expect that towards the end of the bootstrapping period, the tokens are decentralized enough. And in this, even though it is decentralized, it will be very hard for a user, for anybody, to actually buy a large fraction of tokens because the value would be too high in the system. So by keeping this balance, we make sure that we keep the system secure while making it more and more decentralized. And indeed, a user is not required to be online. If he doesn't want to be online, he can choose to be offline. And in later versions, we will have autonomous schemes to say that how to put a user offline if he hasn't acted in the system for a long time. And as I said, right now, we reward all users in the system, so it doesn't matter whether you're online or offline. And in the future, towards more decentralization, we will add more incentive schemes so that there may be a difference. And that would encourage people to participate. I think that would be our strategy.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. In slide, I found that Algprand is good for curing cold because I get cold. I read from the developer.algprand.org. Your project uses Edward curve instead of Thomas curve usually used in Bitcoin and its secrets. What is the main reason of using Edward curve instead of Hubble curve? Because you already mentioned atomic swap is very important in blockchain scene, but if you use different crypto algorithm, the verifying other blockchains hash will be a little harder than use same algorithm. What about your project?
Right, yes, that's a very technical question, and I can tell you're a hardcore developer and cryptographer. So let me repeat the question. So the question is about Algprand use a specific digital signature scheme, while Bitcoin use another digital signature scheme. And these two schemes are not really compatible with each other. And how did we make this design choice? And what is the plan for compatibility and interoperability for the future, right? So that's a very interesting technical question. First, let me say that when you mentioned SECP, that is a elliptic curve parameter standard. The corresponding signature scheme is ECDSA, right? Elliptic curve digital signature algorithm. And what we use in Algprand is EDDSA, Edward curve digital signature algorithm. And the corresponding curve is curve 25519, I believe. And now, there are some, first of all, those two are both based on elliptic curve. Second of all, the EDDSA, which we use, is based on SHA-512, while the ECDSA used by Bitcoin is based on SHA-256. And in terms of security, they are not really comparable, the two signature schemes. One would be better and one would be better in different scenarios. But in terms of implementation, the EDDSA is a modern design and it avoids implementation errors better than the other one. Because in the crypto domain, we see that a lot of security problems happen does not because the underlying crypto is broken, but because the implementation has errors and loopholes in it. ECDSA has been there for a long time. When it was designed, it didn't really consider this type of implementation problems. So when people implement this signature scheme, you got to be super careful, and it is very hard to prevent implementation errors in the system. But for EDDSA, it is a more modern design. It already considers this type of schemes. Therefore, it is better. It is more friendly to the implementation front. So that's part of the reason why we made the choice. I hope that answers your question. And also, another question, a following up question is about interoperability. That because different blockchain systems use different signature schemes, and when we talk about crossing chain operations, the compatibility becomes an important requirement, right? For example, when we will support atomic swaps crossing chains, and when we do this, we plan to build a basket of signature schemes that are supported by our primitives, by our system, so that our system can parse other blockchain signature schemes. And that will facilitate, say, atomic swap between Algprand chain and Bitcoin. So we do plan to, I do believe that compatibility is an important feature in the system, in the future. Okay.
Next question. Last week we have analyzed a white paper and found that the economic incentive mechanism was not visible in paper. Yeah. since the node have to pay for high performance and performance bandwidth and server maintenance, it seems like a charity to run a node without any incentive. What is the Algprand view about this mechanism?
Okay, about the incentive, yes. As I said, in the early stages, we focus on the design of the consensus protocol. The consensus protocol is based on honesty and the malice model. So the consensus protocol doesn't talk about incentives. But I think maybe that gives people the misunderstanding that the Algprand, the system, doesn't have incentive either. But let me clarify that as an ecosystem, we do have incentive mechanisms, as I briefly mentioned in the talk. And the early stage, we reward everybody being part of the network. And via iterations, we will add more incentive structures in the system. And your question is about how the incentive will interact with the cost of the system, basically. Okay, so let me say something about the incentive and cost. In Bitcoin, we see that incentive is crucial because in proof of work, mining is so costly in terms of hardware and electricity. Therefore, if there is no incentive, the network will cease of existence because nobody will be there to support it. However, we also see that Bitcoin's incentive mechanism is kind of misaligned with decentralization. That the current emergence of mining pools was not the designer's original intention. It is unfortunate that the people react to incentives and things so happen that they start forming mining pools. That tells us about the importance of properly designed incentive scheme. And now let me decouple the costs in the system and look at what people need to consume in a blockchain system. I see three major components. One is computation, one is network, one is storage. Now, in terms of computation, Bitcoin is extreme, that you got to reward the computation high enough so that the people want to be part of the network. Now, in Algprand, the computation part is very light. You just, as I said, any typical laptop will be able to participate in that. So we are less concerned about computation costs. Now, in terms of network, that is a cost that every public blockchain system needs to pay because we want to propagate transaction to the whole network, and everybody needs to know what the next block is. That part, there's no way to save it. And what happened in Bitcoin? Bitcoin doesn't have network incentive. People volunteer to be relay network, to be relay nodes in the system. That is because, again, computation is so heavily loaded, nobody even pay attention to relays. Everybody focus on computation. Now in Algprand, computation is so light, so we have the incentive structure for rewarding relay networks, and that will be released in future versions. And we believe our incentive mechanism will facilitate a formation of a relay market so that people can, we let the market decide what would be the price and what would be the reward. So I believe this is a system that will facilitate enough relay activity and without causing centralization of the relay network. So that's in the future versions. Now about storage, I think one example is Ethereum. Because the existence of smart contract, Ethereum state space has exploded to very huge, and it's very hard for a typical small node to store all the data in the system. Ethereum's incentive is kind of the following, that you pay to create a storage space, and then the system pay you to release the data, to release the space. Now that unintentionally create a lot of arbitrage opportunities. Because what we see on Ethereum is that a lot of people would buy space when the token is low, the price is low. and then they will release it when the price is high. So this is not just facilitating the system, but this is really arbitrage, right? And in our system, two things I want to say. One is we have our own technology to compress state space so that storage costs will not be significant in the system. And also, in the future, we will introduce pricing schemes that are different from what you see today to incentivize people to use their space and to not occupy space if they do not need it. So I think those are important, and that will come in future versions of our system. So those are the things I want to say about these.
Does it work? Thank you for your presentation, and I actually am very interested in blockchain core protocol, even including the Algprand as well, but all those questions were quite already listed by those two. So I wanted to ask about more on the infrastructure side of the Algprand, because what I perceive is that the Ethereum blockchain platform has been chosen by lots of blockchain, like decentralized application projects. So lots of the apps are already onboarded on Ethereum. But what I perceive is that the most appealing part of Ethereum is that they already have that development infrastructure. Like there are lots of open source blockchain development tools or like smart contract deployments or testing tools that are like open source, and like there are lots of like middleware solutions exist. But how do you perceive that, like what is the most appealing part of the algorithm at this stage, even though there is less infrastructure constructed when compared to Ethereum?
Okay, good question. So this is about smart contract development and building the apps on our blockchain. So I must say that indeed Ethereum is revolutionary in terms of being a smart contract platform, and has been very successful in attracting developer communities. Because being the first, being there for many years is a big advantage for Ethereum, and that is definitely a pioneer. However, recent years, development on Ethereum, as I mentioned earlier on, we have seen that the cost of building the apps on Ethereum has become higher and higher. Like it gets slower to validate the smart contracts and gets more expensive to do so. And also because Ethereum smart contract is a full functional virtual machine, we also see all kinds of attack vectors like recursion attack, reentrance, gas stack, like stack overflow attack. All those attacks has caused a lot of loss to smart contract, to developers, and to users. So in terms of Algprand, we are building the tools and our smart contract logic, and being aware of those existing issues, we design our smart contract logic to be lightweighted from the beginning, so that we support a small set of logic at the very beginning, rather than a full functional virtual machine, to avoid those known attacks, to make them more secure. And also, we see the following, that there is a big distinction between dApps on Ethereum and dApps on EOS. On Ethereum, people respect its security, and there are many assets on it and financial products. But on EOS, we see people kind of concerned about the security, but people see that it is high performance. So there are a lot of games and gambling applications which do not care much about security, but want to enjoy the high speed, right? And for us, because Algprand is really very high, both high speed and secure, and we expect that Algprand will be able to sustain high value assets while providing high throughput and efficiency. So that would be valuable to assets and also valuable to small dApps. if people want to build their own small games and try out the high throughput, that's also doable. So I believe that Algprand smart contract will be highly efficient and secure by design, and it will be able to sustain high value assets because of our secure blockchain structure. Is very hard to break and very efficient. So I believe those will be the advantages for us in the future.
I think you already answered my scheduled last question because it was about the data side explosion. Because my project is based on EOS. So this block interval only 0.5 seconds. So yeah, the number of block grow is we can expect. So it will grow much larger than in EOS. The very serious problem which is that some new participants want to join the network. Downloading existing blocks and replaying all transactions from the Genesis is a very costful behavior. Then, is there any plan to solve this kind of problem in Algprand?
Right, very interesting. Yeah, I think this is an important question. So it is about catch up. New users or some users who have gone offline for a long time now coming back. How do you catch up with the system status, right? The trivial way is you download the whole history. But as the blockchain getting longer and longer, data gets larger and larger, this is really not really feasible, not very sustainable in the long term. So in Algprand, there are two things I'd like to mention. One is a product called Vault. Vault is our new design that solves exactly this problem for new user to catch up. And it will make catch-up procedure very efficient, and a user does not need to store the whole blockchain history in order to catch up. That is a paper recently published at, I think, NSDI, one of the top network security conferences, and we are going to implement it in the new versions of our. So that will help tremendously. And another thing I want to mention is that in cryptography side, we plan to use gadgets like aggregatable signatures to further compress the database. So that, for example, you can compress 3,000 signatures into one, and you are saving a lot of space for storage.
Approximately, verification random function committee is made of 2,000 to 4,000 nodes. I think it will be hard to meet this condition in reality. Other blockchains have also made a various policy to object node in many ways, such as merge mining and so on. I wonder if I want to have any plan for this object node.
Attracting nodes?
Yeah.
Right, I think those are actually two questions. First, you mentioned the number of votes needed in the consensus protocol. Those are actually not nodes, but tokens. As I said earlier, it's like proof of stake. So we're selecting, say, 2,000 out of however many tokens to participate in the system. Therefore, no matter how many nodes there are, that many tokens will be selected. When there are few nodes, of course, each node will have multiple votes. But when there are more nodes, then the votes will be more distributed in the system. Now, in terms of growing the number of nodes in the system, I think that's important because the more nodes there are, the more distributed the network is. Rather than the consensus protocol, but network structure matters here. We want the network to be decentralized and have, say, 2,000 nodes rather than just 10 nodes running the protocol, right? And in terms of that, we have we are partnering with universities and with developer groups. So a lot of universities have volunteered to run our nodes. And also in the future, as I said, because the cost of running a node is so low, and also the incentive scheme is to reward everybody, even including small users. I hope the community will feel enthusiastic to be a node. When the load is so low, then why not? Just try out the technology. I hope that will attract a lot of developers to become nodes in our network as well.
Have you ever heard about like Quorum or Hyperledger Fabric?
Yeah.
Those are like all of those are like private blockchain platforms, but Quorum is quite like not so much different from that of Ethereum, but just like Ethereum with privacy feature added onto Ethereum. And in Korea, there's like kind of a trend here is that there are lots of private blockchain platforms appearing, and the biggest reason is that they want to support all those like corporates, like enterprises that are highly interested in blockchain, but they can't actually just access to just public chain because they don't want their information all to be like revealed on their public chain. But what I see is that that is quite just far from decentralization. But since the Algprand Foundation is looking forward for solving that blockchain trilemma by not losing out the decentralization feature of blockchain, how do you perceive those private blockchains? And since if Algprand testnet comes out and if all those codes are put to public as a public chain, then what I see is that there would be some movements that they want to fork Algprand and develop their own private chains, so they can also support those enterprises. So I actually want to hear about how does the Algprand team perceive the private chain, and whether the Algprand Foundation has a plan, or they have a plan of developing a private chain for enterprises, or you would just let them see building up like their own like forked, like Algprand forked private chains.
Okay, good question about permissionless blockchains and permissioned blockchains. I think this is a very good question to have. So we have seen many people talking about permissioned blockchains, and from my perspective, there are valid reasons why you want a permissioned blockchain, and there are invalid reasons people may want a permissioned blockchain. For example, somebody may think like a permissioned blockchain is more secure. That is not really true. Security is based on crypto and based on rigorous mathematical analysis. And in a permissionless blockchain like Algprand, you can totally guarantee security without worried about putting a wall around yourself. And another reason people may think is that permissioned chain is faster. That is also not really true, because if a permissioned blockchain is not designed well, you see a lot of communication and synchronized problems within the communication. And for a permissionless blockchain like Algprand is designed to facilitate high-speed transactions already. But there are reasons that why people may want permissioned blockchain. For example, privacy. A lot of sensitive data applications like healthcare, insurance, they deal with private data all the time, and they may want to control data access among their small entities. That's fine, that's totally understandable, and there's a reason for that. But my next point is, how do you build a permissioned blockchain? There are designs that there are protocols that are designed to be permissioned. My feeling is that when you design a permissioned blockchain, you still need to worry about scalability and security, because you cannot really predict who you are going to interact with, say, 3 years from now. You may have only 3 entities right now, but maybe next year you want to have 6. So if growing your network is hard, then the operation cost of having your blockchain will be very high. I have talked to permissioned blockchain projects, And the feedback is that in their system, even though there are only few nodes, whenever they need to update the system, they require all the nodes to stop and then install the update and then restart altogether. Now that is hardly scalable. From my perspective, they do complain about operation cost. Therefore, my point is that if you really want a permissioned blockchain, take a public permissionless blockchain and make it permissioned. That can be easily done. You add a layer of interest control, you get your permission enclosed environment. And for that, because a good permissionless blockchain is designed to be scalable, later you can add more nodes and you can change the governance structure that give you much flexibility than like locking yourself down on day one. So that's one reason. And another reason is that even you want to design a permissioned blockchain, you still may want to care about how to interact with other environments. Maybe nowadays you're happy with including only interaction within your 3 entities. Maybe next year it makes more sense to cross-chain with other projects. Like fitness companies may care about healthcare, and healthcare may care about insurance. So a lot of different permissioned blockchains may want to talk to each other. In that case, it's better to have the design in the system from day one rather than say, okay, now I need to interact and I don't know what to do. So from that perspective, my suggestion would be take the same permissionless blockchain and permission that. Then, because you are using the same language and structure, when you need to interact with each other, it becomes much easier. Then everybody has your own design or structure, right? Now about Algprand, you are asking about open source, and first of all, we are committed to be open source. I believe this is a decentralized world, and only by open sourcing, people can examine our code, can look at what we are actually doing is what we promised to do. And we have we are not against anybody taking our code and permission Algprand. Like, once the code is open source, feel free to do whatever you want, right? And we would be happy to see others adapting Algprand's technology, because then you would automatically have scalability, and you will be very easy to connect with the Algprand public chain and connect with each other. And also, we are not worried about losing leadership either, because anybody who wants to fork Algprand will just follow Algprand. And ourselves internally have many novel technology we haven't released to the public yet. If you're going to our website, you probably will see that we have a bunch of hashed keywords. Those are things on our roadmap that we plan to build, but we haven't released to the public yet. And to show to the public that we are committed to build them, we take the content, we compute the hash, and we commit the hash to the network. And we are going to open those hashes at proper time, and people can see what we are actually building there. So we believe we have enough technology innovation ongoing that we will continue to be the leader in this domain, and we welcome people to use our technology. I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Okay.
Great. 저희 시간 관계상 혹시나 오디언스 중에서 질문이 있으면 하나만 받을게요. 네.
가장 엠베시더가 되면은 가장 특별한 메리트가 뭐예요?
So what is
한국에서요?
what is like the biggest benefit if you become an ambassador in Korea?
Oh, become a Algprand ambassador, yes. First of all, I hope people become the Algprand ambassador because you are excited about the Algprand technology. Second of all, we are just starting to build our community in Korea, and there will be tremendous leadership opportunity. for people, and also being a community leader, we'll have a lot of opportunity to interact with the core team. So, if you're a developer, if you're an ecosystem building team, we welcome you to having a hands-on collaboration with our core team, and helping us organize events and visit our core team at Boston. I believe we have a lot of good events planning, and I hope everybody from developer to community enthusiastic to be able to join us, and that would be a good thing for everybody to join. Are you interested in joining? Great.
Are there any financial benefits?
Sorry?
Are there any financial benefits becoming ambassadors?
At this point, it's more of a volunteer work. Gradually, we will install more structure because we just started this community building. Yes.
네, 늦은 시간까지 자리해주셔서 너무 감사합니다.